Okay, thank you for being here this afternoon to learn about the DPLA Palace project that we're getting underway. And so today is going to be a quick overview of what is the Palace project, what the app looks like, what our purchasing options are through Palace, and then I'm going to ask you all to provide some feedback on what kind of e-content you to make more widely available to your communities and what kind of licensing models work best for us and our patrons. So yeah, that's the outline. We're not really going to get into Collection Manager today. So the Palace Project is a nonprofit platform that was designed by librarians, and it is composed of the administrative portal where we manage the collections and the e-reader app for our patrons that provides kind of an all-in-one e-content management and lending service. And one of the missions of the Palace Project is to create equitable access to e-content for everyone. And patron privacy is also a top priority of Palace, and we do not collect any personal data through this app. Another component of Palace that is interesting to us here at the State Library is that they are negotiating directly with publishers rather than through a vendor like Overdrive. And so they're trying to really create more unique and flexible lending models that are friendlier to library budgets, and also perhaps a little bit more imaginative in how we can serve patrons better by providing simultaneous access or kind of finessing the licensing models a little bit. So we'll get to look at some of those here in a bit. So the State Library has a pilot. I hesitate to say pilot because it sounds like it's really temporary, but we're pretty committed to rolling this out and letting everybody experience it. We have an instance of Palace, which is hosted by a company called Lyrasis, and they provide the platform, hosting, technical support, training, and promotional materials. So Palace is, in essence, it's an open source platform, but we don't have the staff in-house to do all the open source stuff. So we have a contract with Lyrasis, and that provides for the hosting, and then you'll get to see some of the content that we've pulled in. So again, Palace is an app, which we're going to look at here in a bit. It is the collection manager, which is where we can set up our swim lanes and pull in different collections from our different subscriptions and other sources. It's the marketplace where you can purchase or obtain e-content directly. And then there's the Palace Bookshelf, which is public domain open source content. And this is a visual of how that all works together. So the first thing we're going to look at is the Palace app, and that's the end user experience. And the collection manager, as I mentioned, is where we pull in all of our sources of content that create what the patron sees through the app. So collection manager can pull in all of our licensed content like Overdrive. If you have Baker and Taylor, State Library has a BiblioBoard collection of Montana history titles that are pulled into the collection manager, and then we can organize swim lanes. Palace Bookshelf is that open source content, public domain content. And then if you purchase things directly from Palace Marketplace here as well. So it's really an app that aggregates all of these different sources of content into one interface. And then the ILS, the catalog, is used for logging your patrons in, just like we do with Overdrive. And so now I am going to give you a demo of the app. So I'm going to stop sharing this screen. And I'm actually going to turn off my camera, and I'm going to share my phone screen. If you'll just bear with me for 1 second here. Okay, this should be popping up here in a second. Okay, and now I think you are seeing my phone screen. Is that right?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, this is the state library's instance of the Palace app. I have a few different apps that I can demonstrate for you. But let's talk about the basic app functionality. So this app is available for Apple or Android devices. And so in any instance, we can customize this with a library logo and name. You see that at the top of the screen, and that's persistent as we scroll. I'm going to tap on this little Palace icon at the upper left. And you can see I have some different libraries stored in my app, just like you can with Libby. You can browse different collections within the same app. So if I go to Great Falls, then I'm going to see slightly different collection because they have their Overdrive titles populating in here, as well as this Montana History collection, which is from the State Library. That's the Arcadia Publishing always available Montana History ebooks collection. So the homepage is the catalog screen, and this is where users can browse the catalog, sort by formats, or search. And at the bottom of the screen, there are other tabs listed, including My Books, Reservations, and Settings. The My Books tab is where all the books that have been checked out will be displayed. I'm not a Great Falls patron, so if I go back to Montana State Library, there you can see that I have checked out a book using my state library card. And once an ebook or audiobook is downloaded, it can be read or listened to from this screen. Reservations, I don't have anything on hold, but if I did, this would show where all of my items are in hold within the app. And the settings is where I can add libraries if I have multiple library accounts, or make changes to my library account settings. So going back to the catalog, you browse the catalog, scrolling down, selecting lanes of interest. State Library has our government documents collection imported, and Montana History, and we also have a professional development collection, which is available to all librarians. The URL has just changed because they just merged with some other state agencies, so it's not populating today, but you would normally see that in here as well. So I'm going to go back to Great Falls for a better example of all the different swim lanes. And within each lane, there are multiple subgenres listed. So we go into young adult fiction, for example, here's all these different genres, subgenres, and you can open a subgenre lane and you can sort by author, title, or recently added, available now, all, meaning the things that are checked out, or yours to keep. In some cases, there are some books, like some public domain books, that a patron could download and keep permanently. And then the collection, right now the filter is just set to popular books or everything. There are some options for customizing these categories and subcategories. So to search, we're going to tap on that magnifying glass in the upper right. And that will bring up the search box where you can do a basic search. And so you can see here the top two results. The top one is available. It says get, and it's an ebook. And then the second one, Bone Man's Daughters, it has the icon that indicates it's an audiobook. And we can also see that it is checked out because it says reserve. So if I tap on the item display, it will show me that this book is currently checked out. I can get some more information about the book. And if I wanted to reserve it, I would tap on that. If I were a Great Falls patron, I could log in to reserve it. And then I could also allow for notifications to let me know when it's ready for me to check out. And then it would show up on this reservations tab. Now I'm going to go back to my state library account, my books, when reading and listening in the app. So as you can see, I have checked out Historic Underground Missoula. I have 20 days left to read it. I can also return it early if I'm done with it. So I am going to open my book. And it's pretty similar to your experience in Libby in terms of reading an ebook. So at the top in the upper right, you have icons for the table of contents. And you can go to a specific chapter or page. I have a bookmark here. We also have accessibility options here under the T icon. This will bring up a menu that includes different font types and sizes, and dyslexia font, brightness slider, and the ability to change the background color of the screen. And again, I can place a bookmark, and that will appear for me on this table of contents bookmarks tab. And then finally in the app, I wanted to show you the Palace bookshelf, which we'll talk about a little bit more shortly. So if I tap on that Palace icon in the upper left, that brings up all my different libraries that I have access to, and I'm going to tap on Palace bookshelf. And this is going to bring up all of the open source content that is available to me through Palace. These are all things that I can just check out. I don't have to have a library card to access this collection. This is available to absolutely anyone who has the app. And so you can see some information about how this book was made available. So this is a great source of public domain classics and also some probably some self-published books and books from smaller publishers that have allowed Palace to provide unlimited access. Now I'm going back to my slides for a little bit. So that was the app. Again, it's compatible with most of the more recent Apple and Android devices that are running on the latest operating system. we're not going to talk about Collection Manager today. If you were interested in experimenting with Palace and seeing how your collections would look in the app, then we would get into that conversation about Collection Manager. So if this is something that's interesting to you, you can get in touch with me afterwards, and then we'll talk about Collection Manager. That's kind of the back end where you would set up all your swim lanes and collections. So I did want to tell you about Marketplace because, and confusingly, Overdrive's portal is also called Marketplace. So it's basically the same purpose, which is to be able to buy content for your collection. Marketplace is similar to the Overdrive option in that they do have a relationship with the big five, but they also, and I think this is really the strength of the Palace project, is that they seek out mid-level publishers, and especially a lot of the open source content. They're trying to curate content that provides greater value to libraries. They're also working on negotiating better licensing models for libraries, because we're very aware that the models that we have available are extremely expensive for libraries, and they don't really serve our patrons as well as we would like. Palace has a relationship with Amazon and provides a variety of smaller publishers from within that suite. And then we had talked about the Palace bookshelf, and we'll take a closer look at that, what that looks like in the web interface here in a bit. And again, the licensing models, we've gone from kind of what is called one copy, one user, where you buy a title and then it's supposed to be like a physical book, like you can check it out one person at a time, but you have the license, in perpetuity or until your contract ends with that vendor. And over time, we've added these different models, which may be what's called metered access, where you can do 26 loans one at a time. So after 26 people check out the book, then you have to buy the license again. So now they've kind of expanded these models to provide more loans that are still one at a time, but we're starting to see these more interesting kind of simultaneous use models, like 15 loans 5 at a time, or 5 loans 5 at a time. That might serve the purpose of a book group or something like that, more cost efficiently than having to buy something that would be a lot more expensive and maybe provide more access than you need for a specific title. So we'll take a look at that here in a bit when we get into the Palace Marketplace. And in fact, I'm going to just jump over there. I think that now you are seeing the Palace Marketplace page. So we're just going to talk a little bit about the Palace Marketplace. I'm going to check my notes here. Oh, this was a while back. Carmen asked about the icons. The only icon in the app is the red audiobook icon. So it defaults to ebook, but if it's an audiobook, then there will be that headphones icon. So Marketplace, this is where you can purchase materials for your collection, and there's no cost for having a Marketplace membership. So you're free to sign up and to browse. And so the menu provides some different options to help you find materials. If you click on the catalog tab, that opens the categories view, and you'll find titles grouped by all titles, new releases, and so on. And you'll also find categories that are broken down by genre. The selections tab will open to provide titles included in various lanes that were curated by DPLA. And then the Palace bookshelf, which we looked at in the app, this is, so you can, I want to back up, but you can browse the Palace bookshelf as its own library in the app. But if you as a library wanted to add titles to your own collection so that patrons find them in your library's collection, this is where you could do that. And as you can see, these are all available at no cost. It's real mix of things. So some things like, you see up here, like things provided by Maryland elementary school, maybe not of interest to us, but there are those kind of classics that may be of interest that you don't necessarily want to pay for. On the left side here, we can filter by what kind of content we're looking for. And so if I tap on publisher, for example, open bookshelf, and then you can see all the different sources of this open source content. MIT Press, that's probably going to be kind of more academic leaning titles. I'm going to go to open bookshelf. Sight reading for guitar. So for example, if I wanted to add this one, this will give me all the information about this book, unlimited loans, one at a time. So that's still that kind of model of you can check out one at a time, but you can add as many as you want to your collection at no cost. So I can add that to my cart. And here's a good example of the different kinds of licensing models that are available to us through Palace. So this title, Wicked Bozeman. There are 3 different options. We could buy the traditional 1 copy, 1 user. It would be $26. So 1 at a time, and we own it in perpetuity. Or if it were a title that we felt was going to be really popular for a short while, maybe we would want to go with one of these options, like 40 loans, 10 at a time. So we could check it out 40 times for the same amount, but the benefit there would be that 10 people at a time could be reading it. So that would cut down that holds queue. And then 5 loans, 5 at a time, and that's only $6.50. And that could be beneficial, as I mentioned earlier, for like a book group or something of very limited duration where you felt you needed a bunch of copies at once, but probably not for very long. And that would cut down on the budget for that kind of purchase requests. So it would provide some flexibility in our budget to be able to really tailor the purchase to our specific needs for that title. So that is an overview of what the Palace project is and what is available to us. And so I wanted to ask if you had questions, and I also wanted to ask what kinds of content would be appealing to you, and also what kinds of licensing models when we're looking at these different lists. Can you imagine that there would be ways we could use this product that would help expand your e-content offerings to your community in beneficial ways?
Cara, I have a question. So you said earlier that the Palace bookshelf itself, people don't even have to have a library card to check those out, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
So then let's say I'm going into the marketplace and I'm buying, the 5 loans, 5 at a time copy of Speaking Bones or whatever. So where does that end up then? Does that end up on the Palace bookshelf or on the Bozeman Public Library bookshelf? Or how do, I mean, this is the first time I'm hearing about this, so I don't really know if I'm asking the right questions, but like, how do people access it? Like if all of these things are aggregated in one place?
Yep, that's a good question. So, and maybe that would be beneficial to show you the collection manager after all. So, all right, so you're seeing the marketplace page, and there's that book. So let's say I'm adding this to my collection. So
Yeah.
I'm going to hit add to cart, and then I can go to my cart. And I am set up as a state library user. Whenever you sign up for an account, you are associated with the library. So if I'm adding these, they're going to go into the state library collection.
Okay.
And then now you're seeing the collection manager, which is the admin portal. So if I go to state library, this is showing me what the swim lanes look like. If I go into my lists, this is where I configure what I want to display in the app. So then I'm pulling in from these different collections, add from collections. So here I'm pulling in collections from our Internet Archive, which is our government documents. And then we have a collection from BiblioBoard, and then we have a collection from Overdrive. And then if we were purchasing from Palace, there would be an option here that says purchase from Palace, which might be, that might be on, let's see if that's on Great Falls. Yeah, so Montana State Library Palace Marketplace. If Great Falls purchased a book from Marketplace, they could check that. And so they would automatically add it to their collection when they purchased it there.
But so my second, sorry, it was like sort of two questions. So then is that confusing to patrons? Because you have Libby on there too, right? If you have Libby or whatever, that through some of it you need to use your library card and some of it you don't. Would that be confusing or no?
Well, so if you're in the app, I guess I'll go ahead and I'll share my app screen again. Oh, okay, it's gonna ask me to do that again. So if I'm in the app, and I'll show you where it shows the settings. It's kind of like Libby where you log in once and it's going to keep you logged in. I'm connecting to my phone screen here. Okay. So under settings, there's my library card. It's going to keep me logged in. And the state library account is probably not the best example for public libraries. And I don't have a Great Falls account, but because I'm not going to be pulling in all these Palace titles into the state library account, but you could. So the options here are, you see I have 3 distinct libraries set up that I can browse, but to make that easier for a patron on the library side, I could pull in those Palace bookshelf titles that are freely available. I could pull them into the state library collection so that as a patron, when I'm browsing, there could be a swim lane here that says open access or public domain or free books or whatever you want to call it. That way they wouldn't have to toggle between collections. And yeah, they wouldn't have to be logged in to download those, but since they're already in here, you know, they're probably logged in anyway, so they can check out other things. They don't have to log in every time they're checking something out. They'll just be logged in when they're in the app.
Oh, and so they wouldn't necessarily know kind of thing if the library
Right.
card is needed or not? Okay,
Right. Yeah, the goal would be that the patron, it doesn't even matter to them what the license is for them. It's just a book and they can either get it or they have to wait for it. So
yeah, yeah, okay, thank you.
I did want to reiterate with this Montana History Collection, this is a collection that is available to everyone. The State Library has purchased this using ARPA funds. And so these titles, these are always available. They're like the magazines, there's never a wait list. And so you can take advantage of those. Whether or not you use the Palace app, there is a way to access this collection. So we really hope people will make use of it. There's about 75 titles and they're very specific to Montana history. So pretty cool. Sierra asks, is the Montana Library to Go collection something that could be added? Yes. And yeah, that's a good point about the overlap with Libby. So I would just say outright that, you know, Libby is a really slick, nice interface, and people I think have really grown used to it. And the big advantage of Libby for me right now is that we can access the magazines and the extras, whereas we cannot yet pull those into Palace. So it's kind of a drawback for Palace. I'm not sure that this interface is quite as snazzy as Libby. So there's that. I think the benefit of this project is if you have multiple sources of e-content that you want to pull into one kind of user experience, that this can provide it. It's freely available for your library to use if you want to try that out. And it also provides that access point for all the public domain and classics and other freely available content. If you're looking for ways to expand the variety of content available to your community. Timeline on this project. Well, it is available for libraries to start using at any time. And so we've, as you can see, we started experimenting with Great Falls, the State Library, and a couple of other public libraries, just seeing what it looks like to import materials. But if anybody is interested in trying it out, you can get in touch with me and we can load your collections and you could have some people test it, and we'd love to get some feedback on this. We'd also like to know what kinds of content would be beneficial to provide on a statewide level. You know, if we're not talking about the big 5 publishers and, you know, the latest Stephen King or anything, but things that would broaden our collections that would be appealing to your patrons, that would be really helpful to us. So any other questions or comments? Okay, I'm going to stop our recording.